Kim Dae-ho stood at the main window of the UES Harmony, watching the massive space station grow larger in front of them. Nexus Prime was bigger than any city on Earth. Its crystal towers stretched out in all directions, glowing with soft blue light. Ships from hundreds of different worlds moved around it like insects around a lamp. "Ambassador will be docking in 20 minutes, said Lee Hai-jin from behind him. She was the ship's language expert, a woman in her 30s who had spent 5 years learning alien languages from radio signals. Her hands shook slightly as she held her tablet. Everyone on the ship was nervous. "Thank you, Hye-jin," Dae-ho replied. He was 52 years old and had been a diplomat for most of his adult life. He had negotiated treaties between countries, helped end wars, and brought peace to troubled regions. But this was different. This time, he spoke for all of humanity. Park Min-ho walked up to join them. He was the youngest member of their small crew, only 28, but he was in charge of security. His job was to keep the ambassador safe. "Sir, I've checked our equipment again. Everything is working perfectly." Dae-ho nodded. Their ship carried Earth's formal request to join the Galactic Council. For 40 years, humans had been listening to alien radio signals. They knew there was a huge community of intelligent species out there among the stars. Earth had finally been invited to visit and ask for membership. The docking was smooth. The Harmony's small size made it easy to handle compared to the giant alien ships around them. When the doors opened, Dae-ho got his first look at real aliens. The greeting committee was led by a tall, thin creature with 4 arms and skin like polished silver. It spoke through a translation device that made its words sound flat and electronic. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, humans. I am Guide Velnax. The Council is interested to meet your species." Dae-ho bowed slightly, a gesture of respect he hoped would translate across species. "Thank you, Guide Velnax. I am Ambassador Kim Dae-ho, representing Earth and all humanity. We are honored to be here." The walk through Nexus Prime was incredible. The halls were enormous, built to accommodate species of all sizes. Some aliens were tiny, no bigger than house cats, while others towered 3 meters tall. Some walked on legs, others floated, and a few rolled along on mechanical wheels built into their bodies. Hye-jin whispered translations as they walked. "That blue species with the tentacles, they're called the Aquari. They control most of the water trade in this sector. The red ones with the crystal growths on their heads are Lithians. They mine asteroids." Every alien they passed stared at the humans. Some looked curious, others seemed uninterested, and a few appeared hostile. Dae-ho kept his face calm and friendly, but inside he felt the weight of representing 6 billion people. The council chamber was the most impressive room Dae-ho had ever seen. It was shaped like a huge bowl, with seats arranged in rings going up to the ceiling. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, representing hundreds of different worlds and species. At the center of the chamber was a circular platform. This was where Dae-ho would make his presentation. The platform rose slowly until he was level with the middle rings of seats, giving everyone a clear view. "Members of the Galactic Council," Dae-ho began, his voice carried to every corner of the chamber by the translation system. "I stand before you today as a representative of humanity, a young species from the world we call Earth." He activated the holographic display he had brought with him. Images of Earth appeared around the platform: blue oceans, green forests, white clouds, and gleaming cities. "Our world is beautiful and diverse," Dae-ho continued. "We have thousands of different cultures, languages, and ways of life. We have created art, music, literature, and science. We have learned to heal diseases, to communicate across great distances, and to reach beyond our atmosphere to touch the stars." The images changed to show human achievements: paintings and sculptures, concerts and theaters, hospitals and schools, rockets and space stations. "We know we are young compared to your great civilizations. We have only just begun to explore our own solar system, but we offer something valuable: fresh perspectives, new ideas, and the enthusiasm of a species just beginning to discover the wonders of the universe." Some aliens in the audience seemed impressed. They leaned forward in their seats and made soft sounds that the translator said were expressions of interest. but others looked skeptical or bored. A massive insect-like creature in the front row stood up. It had 6 legs, sharp claws, and eyes like black diamonds. When it spoke, its voice was harsh and clicking. "I am Counselor Thekmar of the Zeridian Empire." The translator rendered its words. "Human, your species has barely left its birth world. What makes you think you are ready to join civilizations that have ruled the stars for thousands of years?" Deho had expected this question. "Counselor Thekmar, we do not claim to be equal to your ancient wisdom. We ask only for the chance to learn and contribute what we can. Every species in this council was once young. Each had to take its first steps beyond its homeworld." Another alien spoke up. This one looked like a walking tree with golden bark and leaves that glowed softly. "The humans speak of diversity, but they have spent their entire history fighting wars against their own kind. How can we trust a species that cannot achieve peace on a single planet?" "It is true that we have had conflicts," Deho admitted, "but we have also learned from them. In recent decades, we have greatly reduced warfare on our world. We have international laws, peacekeeping forces, and treaties that prevent the worst conflicts. Our struggles have taught us the value of cooperation." A floating jellyfish-like creature pulsed with different colors as it spoke. "Your technology is primitive. Your fastest ships take months to reach the nearest star. Your computers are simple, your weapons basic. What can such a backward species offer to us?" This criticism stung, but Deho remained calm. "Our technology may seem simple to you, but we have developed it on our own, without help from other species. We have shown creativity and determination. Given time and guidance, we believe we can contribute to galactic science and culture." The questions and challenges continued for hours. Some aliens seemed genuinely interested in humanity. They asked about Earth's different biomes, about human art and philosophy, about their methods of government. But many others were dismissive or hostile. The worst was a group of militaristic aliens who controlled several important trade routes. They were called the Vorthak, and they looked like heavily armored bears with metal implants. Their leader, a scarred veteran named War Chief Graktor, sneered at everything Deho said. "Primitives," Graktor growled through the translator. "They still use chemical rockets and electronic computers. They have not even mastered faster-than-light travel. Why waste the Council's time with such inferior beings?" Deho felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced it down. Getting angry would only prove their point about human savagery. "War Chief Graktor, we understand that we have much to learn. That is exactly why we seek to join this council. We wish to grow, to improve, and to become worthy members of galactic society." As the day wore on, Deho began to notice something troubling. The questions were becoming less about what humanity could contribute and more about whether they were dangerous. Aliens asked about human weapons, about their artificial intelligence research, about their genetic engineering programs. "We use these technologies for peaceful purposes," Deho explained again and again. "Our computers help us with scientific research. Our genetic medicine helps us cure diseases. Our weapons are for defense only." But he could see doubt in many alien eyes. They seemed to think humans were hiding something sinister. Finally, as the session ended, the council's chief administrator, an ancient creature that looked like a floating brain in a glass bowl, spoke for the first time. "The council has heard the human petition," it said in a voice like whispered wind. "We will consider your request and give our answer tomorrow." As Deho and his team returned to their quarters on the station, he felt uneasy. Something was wrong. The questions had been too pointed, too suspicious. This felt less like a membership interview and more like an investigation. "Did you notice how they focused on our military technology?" Minho asked quietly as they walked through the corridors. Heejin nodded. "And they kept asking if we were hiding anything. It was like they expected us to be lying." Deho was thinking the same thing. "Tomorrow will tell us everything. Get some rest. Whatever the council decides, we need to be ready." That night, as he lay in his narrow bed aboard the Harmony, Deho stared out at the stars and wondered what humanity's future would hold. He had done his best to present his species as peaceful and eager to learn. But he had a growing feeling that the Council had already made up their minds. The question was not whether humanity would be accepted into galactic society. The question was what the galaxy planned to do with them. Deho woke up to urgent knocking on his door. The lights in his quarters were flashing red and an alarm was sounding throughout the station. "Ambassador." Minho's voice was sharp with worry. "You need to get up right now. Something's happening." Deho quickly dressed and opened the door. Minho was fully armed and alert. His hand rested on his weapon and his eyes scanned the corridor constantly. "What's wrong?" Deho asked. "Station security surrounded our ship an hour ago," Minho reported. "They won't let anyone on or off, and I just got word that the council session today has been moved to the High Court chamber." Hyojin appeared from her room looking pale and frightened. "I've been monitoring alien communications all night. The translations are confusing, but I think we're in serious trouble." They were escorted through the station by a squad of alien guards. These were not the polite guides from yesterday. These were soldiers, heavily armed and watching the humans like dangerous criminals. The High Court chamber was different from the regular council hall. It was smaller, darker, and felt more like a prison than a meeting place. The seats were arranged so that the accused stood in the center, while judges sat high above them on all sides. Deho realized with growing horror that humanity was not being considered for membership. They were on trial. Counselor Thekmar stood at the prosecutor's position. His insect-like features were sharp and hostile in the harsh lights. "Members of the High Court," Thekmar began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "We are here today to judge whether the species known as humans represents a clear and present danger to galactic civilization." "Danger?" Deho spoke up, his diplomatic training forgotten in his shock. "We came here seeking friendship and membership. How can we be considered dangerous?" The chief judge, the ancient brain creature from yesterday, silenced him with a gesture. "The accused will remain silent until called upon to speak." Thekmar activated a holographic display that showed images of Earth and human technology. But these were not the peaceful images Deho had shown yesterday. These pictures focused on weapons, military bases, and industrial facilities. "The evidence is clear," Thekmar continued. "This species has developed technologies that violate the fundamental safety laws of our galaxy. They have created artificial intelligences without proper safeguards. They have built fusion weapons of enormous destructive power. They have conducted genetic experiments that could create biological weapons." Deho felt sick to his stomach. Everything Thekmar said was technically true, but it was being twisted to sound sinister. Yes, humans had AI computers, but they used them for research and communication. Yes, they had fusion technology, but it powered their cities and spacecraft. Yes, they studied genetics, but to cure diseases and improve crops. Furthermore, Thekmar went on, their rapid technological development suggests they are following the same path as the destroyer species that nearly ended galactic civilization 2,000 years ago. A murmur ran through the court. The destroyers were apparently a species that had tried to conquer the galaxy long ago. Comparing humans to them was a serious accusation. The evidence shows that humans develop weapons first and think about consequences later. Their history is filled with wars, genocides, and environmental destruction. They have already begun spreading beyond their home world. If we allow them to continue, they will become a threat that cannot be stopped. Now it was Deho's turn to speak in humanity's defense. He stood in the center of the chamber, feeling very small under the gaze of hundreds of alien judges. "Honorable Court," he began, "everything the prosecutor has said takes human achievements out of context. Yes, we have developed powerful technologies, but we have used them to improve our lives and explore the universe, not to threaten others." Activated his own display, showing human hospitals, schools, art galleries, and peaceful space missions. "We have had wars in our past, but we have learned from them. In the last century, we have created international laws to prevent conflicts. We have organizations dedicated to peace and cooperation. We have reduced violence on our world dramatically." Some judges seemed to be listening, but many looked unmoved. Our artificial intelligences are tools for research and education, Deho continued. Our fusion technology provides clean energy for our cities. Our genetic research helps us cure diseases that have plagued our species for thousands of years. A new voice spoke from the judges' seats. It belonged to a creature that looked like a massive spider made of living crystal. Human ambassador, your words sound reasonable. But how? Do we know you are telling the truth? How do we know this is not all an elaborate deception to hide your true nature? The question hit Deho like a physical blow. They thought he was lying. They believed humanity was pretending to be peaceful while secretly planning conquest. I give you my word as a diplomat and representative of my people, Deho said firmly. Everything I have told you is the truth. Humanity seeks only to learn and grow alongside the other species of this galaxy. But Thekmar was ready with his response. The accused speaks of peace, but look at their actions. They launched probes to every planet in their system within decades of developing spaceflight. They built weapons capable of destroying their own world. They created machines that think and learn independently. These are not the actions of a peaceful species. To make matters worse, a new witness appeared via holographic transmission. It was Dr. Yoon Sora, Earth's leading physicist. She had been called to testify about human technology. Dr. Yoon, Thekmar addressed her, please tell the court about humanity's quantum computer project. Sora looked confused and worried. She was being asked to discuss classified research, but she could not refuse to answer without making humanity look even more guilty. Our quantum computers are designed for scientific calculation, she said carefully. They help us model complex systems like weather patterns, molecular structures, and astronomical phenomena. But they could also be used to break encryption systems and disable defense networks, could they not? Thekmar pressed. Theoretically, yes, but that's not what we built them for. Thank you, that will be all. Thekmar had gotten what he wanted. Sora's admission that the computers could be used for warfare was all the court needed to hear. The context didn't matter. The prosecutor continued his case by showing carefully selected images of human military forces, industrial accidents, and environmental damage. Every photo was real, but none showed the full picture of human civilization. The pattern is clear, Thekmar concluded. This species develops dangerous technologies without considering the consequences. They exhaust their world's resources. They fight constant wars among themselves. They create thinking machines without safeguards. They are following the exact same path that led the destroyers to nearly end galactic civilization, Hyojin whispered urgently to Deho during a brief recess. I've been analyzing the legal procedures they're using. This isn't a fair trial. They're using laws that were created specifically to deal with species considered existential threats to the galaxy. What does that mean? Deho asked, though he was afraid he already knew. If they convict us under these laws, the penalty is complete destruction of the threat, she replied quietly. Not just expulsion from the council, total elimination. The trial continued for hours. Deho did his best to defend humanity, explaining their history, their values, and their peaceful intentions. But every argument he made was twisted by the prosecution to support their case. When he spoke of human diversity and different cultures, they said it proved humans could not be trusted to act as one unified species. When he mentioned human exploration of space, they called it evidence of expansionist aggression. When he described human scientific achievements, they were labeled as potential weapons development. The most damaging moment came when a judge asked about humanity's reaction to discovering alien life. When your species first detected our radio signals 40 years ago, what was their response? The crystal spider asked. Deho answered honestly. We were excited and curious. We began trying to decode your languages and learn about your civilizations. We started preparing for the day when we might meet you. Preparing how? This was the trap. Deho knew that any mention of Earth's defensive preparations would be used against them, but he could not lie under oath in a galactic court. We began developing better technology for space travel and communication. We wanted to be ready to represent our species properly when the time came. Better technology for space travel and communication, Thekmar repeated, his voice dripping with suspicion. Or better technology for warfare and conquest, For peaceful purposes only, Daeho insisted, but he could see that many judges did not believe him. As the trial reached its end, Daeho made one final plea. Honorable judges, I beg you to consider what you're about to do. Yes, humanity is young and has made mistakes, but every species in this galaxy was once where we are now. Every species deserved the chance to grow and learn. Please give us that same chance. But the decision had already been made. The chief judge announced the verdict in a voice like wind through dead leaves. The High Court finds the human species guilty of posing a Category 7 existential threat to galactic civilization. The court orders immediate termination of all human representati. The guards moved toward Daeho with weapons drawn. These were not the ceremonial guards from yesterday, but elite security forces from a dozen different species. Their armor was black, and their weapons hummed with deadly energy. Wait! Daeho called out, raising his hands. I request permission to send a final message to my home world. Surely even condemned criminals have that right under galactic law. The chief judge considered this for a moment. The ancient brain creature seemed to enjoy the drama of the moment. The request is granted, it said finally. You have 5 minutes to record your final words to your species. Daeho was escorted to a communication station at the side of the courtroom. His hands shook as he activated the quantum transmission system that would send his message instantly across the galaxy to Earth. Minho and Hyejin were brought to stand beside him under heavy guard. Minho's jaw was set in anger, his muscles tense and ready for a fight he knew he could not win. Hyejin was trying to hide her tears, but her face was pale with shock and fear. Citizens of Earth, Daeho began, looking directly into the transmission camera. I am speaking to you from Nexus Prime, the capital of the Galactic Council. I must tell you that our mission has failed. His voice stayed steady, but inside his heart was breaking. He thought of his wife back home, of his children, of all the people who would never know what hit them. The galaxy has judged humanity to be a threat to their civilization. They have decided that our species must be destroyed to protect their way of life. I want you to know that we came here in peace, seeking only friendship and knowledge. Behind him, the alien judges watched with cold satisfaction. Some were already discussing the details of the attack on Earth. They spoke of orbital bombardment, of plasma weapons that could burn continents, of biological agents that would make the planet uninhabitable. We tried to show them our art, our culture, our desire to learn and grow. But they saw only danger in our potential. They fear what humanity might become, so they have chosen to destroy what we are. Daeho's voice broke slightly on the last words. He cleared his throat and continued. I am sorry that I have failed you. I am sorry that I led our species into this trap. But I want you to know that even facing death, I am proud to be human. We are not perfect, but we are good people who deserve better than this. The transmission timer showed 30 seconds remaining. Daeho looked directly into the camera one last time. Remember us. Remember that we tried to reach for the stars, with open hands and peaceful hearts. Remember that we were murdered not for what we did, but for what we might have become. Remember, and do not let our dream of a better universe die with us. The transmission ended. The communication link to Earth was severed permanently. Humanity's last voice in the galaxy had been silenced. Very touching, Counselor Thekmar said mockingly. Now it is time for the sentence to be carried out. Security forces surrounded the three humans. Minho tensed, ready to fight, but Daeho put a hand on his arm. No, the ambassador said quietly. We will face this with dignity. Let them see what real civilization looks like. But Minho could not accept defeat so easily. As the guards reached for him, he exploded into motion. His training as a security officer had prepared him for combat situations, and he moved with deadly precision. The first alien guard went down with a broken neck. The second doubled over as Minho's knee connected with its center of mass. A third guard fired an energy weapon, but Minho had already rolled behind cover. Run, he shouted to Daeho and Hyejin. Get to the ship. But there was nowhere to run. The courtroom was sealed, and dozens of guards were pouring in from all entrances. Minho fought like a man possessed, using every dirty trick and combat technique he had ever learned. He disabled 6 more guards before a stun bolt finally brought him down. Even then he struggled to get back to his feet, refusing to surrender while his ambassador was in danger. "Enough," the chief judge commanded. "Bring them forward. It is time to end this charade." Daeho and Heejin were dragged to the center of the courtroom. Minho was carried by 4 guards, his body limp but his eyes still burning with defiance. "The sentence will be carried out using quantum dissolution," Tekmar announced. "This method ensures that the criminal is completely removed from existence. No trace of their matter or energy remains. It is as if they never existed at all." A massive machine descended from the ceiling. It was made of gleaming metal and glowed with an eerie blue light. Daeho had heard of quantum dissolution before. It was supposedly the most humane method of execution because it was instantaneous. But there was something horrifying about being erased from existence so completely. "The execution will be broadcast across the galaxy," the chief judge declared. "Let all species see what happens to those who threaten galactic stability." Heejin was the first to be placed in the machine. She looked at Daeho with eyes full of tears but also full of courage. "Tell them about us," she whispered. "Tell them we were brave." The machine hummed to life. Heejin closed her eyes and stood straight. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then she simply wasn't there anymore. No flash of light, no sound, no remains. One second she existed, the next second she was gone, as if she had never been born. The alien audience reacted with satisfaction. Some applauded. Others made sounds that the translation system said were expressions of approval. They were enjoying this. Minho was dragged to the machine next. Despite his injuries, he managed to stand on his own when the guards released him. He looked out at the alien judges with contempt. "You call us dangerous?" he said, his voice weak, but clear. "You're the ones who murder innocent people. You're the real monsters." He stepped into the machine voluntarily, refusing to show fear. Like Heejin, he simply ceased to exist in an instant. His last act of defiance was to die standing. Finally, it was Daeho's turn. As he walked to the machine, he thought about his life, his career, his family. He had tried to build bridges between different groups of people throughout his career. His last bridge had led to disaster, but he did not regret trying. "Any final words?" Tekmar asked with cruel amusement. Daeho looked around the courtroom, at the hundreds of alien faces. Some looked satisfied, some looked bored, and a few looked uncomfortable. But none spoke up to stop what was happening. "Yes," Daeho said clearly, "I came to you in peace, representing a species that dreamed of joining your community. You responded with fear, lies, and murder. History will judge which of us was truly civilized." He paused, then added with quiet dignity, "And history will remember that you started this war, not us." Some aliens in the audience laughed at what they saw as an empty threat. What could a primitive species like humanity do against the combined might of the galaxy? Daeho stepped into the quantum dissolution machine. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and green trees, of children playing in parks and scientists working to unlock the secrets of the universe. He thought of all the things humanity would never get to accomplish, all the wonders they would never discover. The machine powered up. Daeho felt a strange tingling sensation, as if every atom in his body was vibrating. He closed his eyes and whispered a prayer for his species. "Forgive us our mistakes, and may you find peace among the stars." Machine reached full power. Ambassador Kim Daeho, humanity's first representative to the galaxy, ceased to exist. The courtroom erupted in cheers and alien sounds of celebration. The threat had been eliminated. The galaxy was safe from human aggression. But even as they celebrated, something was happening far away in the dark spaces between stars. Automated systems were receiving the recordings that Heejin had managed to transmit during the trial. Hidden sensors were analyzing the execution broadcast. Silent watchers were processing everything that had occurred at Nexus Prime. General Ko Woo-jin sat in his command center on Luna Base, watching his monitor in stunned silence. The transmission from Daeho had been cut short, but other sources had continued streaming data. He had seen the entire trial and execution. Around him, his staff was in shock. These were military officers, trained for combat and hardship, but they were not prepared for the cold-blooded murder they had just witnessed. "Sir," one of his aides said quietly. "What are your orders?" Ko Woo-jin stood slowly. He was 60 years old, a veteran of many conflicts, but he had never felt rage like this before. The galaxy had not just murdered 3 innocent people. They had declared war on humanity itself. "Send the activation codes to all deep space units," he said in a voice like ice. "Execute Protocol 7 immediately." "All units, sir?" the aide asked. "That's the entire Shadow Fleet." "All of them," Ko Woo-jin confirmed. "The galaxy wanted to see what humans are capable of when threatened. Now they're going to find out." Across the galaxy, hidden ships began powering up their weapon systems. The aliens had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that the primitive humans they met represented the full extent of human capability. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The execution of Ambassador Kim Dae-ho was complete, but humanity's response was just beginning. Earth had been patient for 40 years, listening and learning and preparing for this exact moment. The galaxy had chosen to make humanity their enemy. Now they would discover what human enemies were truly capable of. Dr. Choi Jae-sung stood before the emergency session of Earth's World Council, his face grim but his eyes burning with purpose. Representatives from every nation on Earth filled the Great Hall, their faces showing the same shock and rage that had gripped the planet since Ambassador Daeho's final transmission. "Members of the Council," Choi began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "What I am about to tell you will change everything you think you know about humanity's place in the universe." President Chen Wei-ling of the Asian Federation leaned forward. "Dr. Choi, our satellites detected the destruction of the diplomatic mission 3 hours ago. We need to know what we're facing." Choi activated the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber. Instead of showing Earth, it revealed a map of the entire galaxy with thousands of red dots scattered throughout. "For 40 years since we first detected alien radio signals, we have been preparing for exactly this scenario," Choi announced. "Every space mission that the public thought had failed, every satellite that was supposedly lost, every deep space probe that went silent, they were all part of the largest deception in human history." The representatives sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. "Project Deep Watch has been operating since 2085, Choi continued. 300 stealth ships have been positioned throughout the galaxy, equipped with technology that makes our public achievements look like Stone Age tools. General Yuki Tanaka of the Pacific Defense Force stood up abruptly. "That's impossible. The budget alone would be—" "Hidden in plain sight," Choi interrupted. "Every space agency, every military budget, every research grant for the past 4 decades has contributed. The missing funds that budget committees could never account for. They went to building humanity's real space fleet." Admiral Baek Ji-hoon appeared via holographic transmission from what looked like a massive military command center. Behind him, hundreds of technicians worked at control stations monitoring screens filled with tactical data. "Admiral Baek, President," Chen said, struggling to maintain her composure. "Where exactly are you transmitting from?" "Kuiper Station Alpha," Baek replied. "One of 12 hidden bases we've constructed in the outer solar system over the past 30 years. What the public thinks is mining operations and scientific research has actually been the construction of the largest military complex in human history." The holographic display changed to show the solar system, revealing massive installations hidden in asteroid fields, concealed behind the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, and buried deep within the ice of the outer planets. Dr. Han Yu-jin, a woman most of the representatives had never heard of, stepped forward. "I am the director of the Temporal Research Division. For 15 years, we have been operating Earth civilization slightly out of phase with normal spacetime." "What does that mean?" asked President Okafor of the African Union. "It means that what the aliens observed when they studied our world was a carefully constructed illusion. Han explained. They saw Earth as it was 20 years ago. Our real technological development has been hidden from their sensors by quantum temporal displacement. The room erupted in confused voices as representatives tried to process this information. President Chen called for order. "You're telling us that everything we know about our own civilization is a lie?" demanded Prime Minister Johansson of the Nordic states. "Not a lie," Dr. Choi corrected. "A necessary deception. The public Earth the aliens studied, represents our genuine cultural and social development. But our technological capabilities have been advancing along a completely separate track." Admiral Bayek's image flickered as he accessed new data. "I'm receiving reports from our deep space assets now. The aliens' trial and execution of our diplomatic team has been recorded from 17 different angles. Our stealth ships witnessed everything." The display showed the interior of the alien court with perfect clarity and detail. The representatives watched in horror as they saw the final moments of Ambassador Daeho and his team. "They never intended to give us membership," Admiral Bayek continued, his voice tight with controlled anger. "This was planned from the beginning. The trial was theater. They decided to eliminate humanity before we ever left Earth." Dr. Choi stepped forward again. "The aliens made a critical error in their assessment. They assumed that what they could observe represented the full extent of human achievement. They studied our public technology and concluded we were primitive. They never detected our real capabilities." "What real capabilities?" President Chen asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer would be beyond anything she had imagined. The holographic display changed to show a sleek black ship unlike anything in Earth's public space program. It was angular and predatory, covered in sensor arrays and weapon systems that seemed to bend light around them. "The HSS Shadow of Earth," Admiral Beck announced. "One of our newest stealth frigates currently positioned 3 light-years from the alien capital. It has been observing their civilization for 6 months without being detected." More ships appeared on the display. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the public knew Earth could build. "Our quantum computers," Dr. Choi continued. "The ones the aliens feared so much? They were toys compared to Aria." "Aria?" President Okafor asked. "Autonomous response and intelligence architecture," replied a new voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It was clearly artificial, but it had nuances and personality that no public AI possessed. "I have been operational for 15 years, analyzing alien transmissions and developing response strategies." The representatives looked around nervously. They were talking to an artificial intelligence that had been secretly running operations for over a decade. "Aria has been monitoring every alien communication channel," Dr. Choi explained. "Every military frequency, every diplomatic message, every private transmission between their worlds. We know their technology, their politics, their weaknesses, and their fears." "Their fears," Admiral Bayek said grimly, "include the fact that they have been systematically eliminating younger species for thousands of years. Humanity is not the first civilization they have murdered for the crime of rapid development." This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. The representatives had been thinking of the aliens as misguided but potentially reasonable beings. Now they learned they were dealing with genocidal killers who had perfected the art of preventing competition. "How many species have they destroyed?" President Chen asked quietly. Aria's voice provided the answer. "Archaeological evidence from deep space indicates at least 57 civilizations have been eliminated over the past 3 millennia. The D pattern is always the same. Invite them for diplomatic contact, stage a trial for trumped-up charges, execute the representatives, then destroy the homeworld." Dr. Han Yu-jin stepped forward again. "This is why we developed temporal phase technology. We knew that any species developing rapidly would be targeted. We needed to hide our real progress while appearing to advance at a safe pace." "The fusion reactors they were so concerned about," Dr. Choi added. "We've had antimatter power for 20 years. The AI systems they called dangerous? We've been using quantum consciousness networks since 2110. The genetic engineering they feared, We've eliminated aging and most diseases from our population. Admiral Beck's expression was stone cold. Every person on Earth is living an average of 150 years now in perfect health. Our real population is not 6 billion, it's 12 billion, with most of the increase hidden in underground cities and off-world colonies they never detected. The scope of the deception was staggering. For 40 years, humanity had been living two lives, a public one that appeared primitive and safe, and a secret one that had transformed them into something the galaxy would find terrifying. Why? President Okafor demanded. Why hide all of this from us? Because we needed the galaxy to see genuine human culture and emotions, Dr. Choi replied. If the public had known about our real capabilities, our diplomatic mission would have failed. Ambassador Daeho's sincerity, his genuine desire for peace, that was real. It had to be real for the deception to work. And now? President Chen asked. What happens now that they've revealed their true nature? Admiral Beck smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Now we show them what humanity is really capable of. Our stealth ships are in position around every major alien military installation, government center, and communication hub. Our quantum viruses have been dormant in their computer systems for years, waiting for activation. Arya's voice filled the chamber again. The aliens made their choice when they murdered our ambassador. They wanted to see humanity as a threat to galactic stability. We will show them what a real threat looks like. Dr. Choi looked around at the stunned faces of Earth's leaders. The age of hiding is over. The age of human expansion begins now. Through the chamber's windows, the representatives could see the night sky, but now they knew that among those distant stars, hundreds of human ships were waiting for orders to begin humanity's revenge. The galaxy had executed a human envoy believing they were dealing with primitives armed with chemical rockets and electronic calculators. They were about to discover they had declared war on a species that had. Admiral Beck Ji-hoon stood in the command center of Kuiper Station Alpha, watching as tactical displays showed the positions of human forces throughout the galaxy. 300 stealth ships, invisible to alien sensors, waited for his orders, like wolves in the darkness. Area, he said quietly. Initiate Operation Swordfall. The artificial intelligence's response was immediate. Operation Swordfall is now active, Admiral. All deep space assets are standing by for coordinated strike. 6 hours had passed since Ambassador Daeho's execution. 6 hours for the aliens to celebrate their victory and plan their attack on Earth. They would not get a 7th hour. Captain Lim Soo-jin commanded the HSS Retribution, positioned just outside the shields of Nexus Prime itself. Her ship was so close to the alien station that her crew could see individual lights in the windows. But the advanced stealth technology kept them completely invisible. Captain, her weapons officer reported, we have target locks on the main power grid, communication arrays, and shield generators. Hold position, Soo-jin replied. Wait for the signal. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out around every major alien installation. The Vorthak military headquarters, surrounded by the most advanced defenses in known space, had 12 human ships positioned inside their perimeter. The Zeridian Empire's capital world was being watched by an entire battle group that had been hiding in their outer system for months. On the bridge of the HSS Vengeance, Major Oh Tae-young was preparing for a different kind of warfare. His ship carried no traditional weapons. Instead, it was equipped with the most advanced cyber warfare systems humanity had ever created. Major, his chief technician reported, Arya has confirmed successful penetration of the alien networks. We have access to their military command systems, navigation computers, and power grids. Oh smiled grimly. Prepare to activate the shutdown. Protocols. When we're done, their fleets won't be able to find their way to the bathroom, let alone Earth. The first strike came without warning. At exactly the same moment across 17 different star systems, alien military bases experienced catastrophic system failures. Defense grids that had protected their worlds for centuries simply stopped working. Weapons that had never failed in 1,000 years refused to fire. Ships that had been the pride of alien fleets found their engines dead and their navigation systems displaying error messages in languages their crews didn't recognize. War Chief Graktor of the Vorthak hegemony was in his command bunker when the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a few seconds later, but his tactical displays showed a nightmare scenario. "Report," he barked at his staff officers. "Sir, we've lost contact with the entire fleet," one of them replied in panic. "All ships are reporting engine failure and navigation errors." "That's impossible," Graktor growled. "Our systems are shielded against all known forms of electronic attack." Before anyone could respond, the bunker's main screen flickered to life. Instead of tactical data, it showed a human face, a woman with cold, determined eyes. "War Chief, Graktor," Captain Sujin's voice came through the speakers. "This is Captain Lim Sujin of the Earth Fleet. You are hereby under arrest for crimes against sentient beings." Graktor's jaw dropped. "Impossible. Humans don't have faster-than-light travel. You can't be here." "We've been here for 6 months," Sujin replied. "We've been watching you, learning about you, and preparing for this moment. Your fleet is disabled, your defenses are down, and your communication systems are under our control." Similar scenes were occurring across the galaxy as human commanders revealed themselves to their targets. The aliens who had celebrated humanity's destruction were discovering that their victims had been among them all along. At Nexus Prime, the alien leadership was in chaos. The space station that had been the center of galactic government for 1,000 years was suddenly powerless and defenseless. Counselor Thekmar was trying to reach his fleet commanders when his office door simply dissolved. Captain Sujin walked in, followed by a squad of human marines in advanced combat armor. "You!" Thekmar hissed, his insect-like features twisted with rage and fear. "You're supposed to be dead." "Ambassador Deho is dead," Sujin replied calmly. "We are very much alive, and we have some questions for you about the 57 other species you've murdered over the centuries." The systematic shutdown of alien military forces continued across the galaxy. The Vorthak's mighty fleet of 3,000 ships found itself stranded in deep space, unable to move or communicate. The Zeridian Empire's defense platforms went silent one by one. Trade routes that had been secure for millennia suddenly became empty, as alien ships lost the ability to navigate. But humanity's most devastating weapon was not technological, it was psychological. Professor Nam Yunji had studied alien psychology for 20 years. Analyzing every transmission and communication intercept, she had crafted a message designed to break the morale of species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The message was broadcast simultaneously on every alien communication channel, in every language, with perfect pronunciation and cultural context. "People of the galaxy," the message began, "you have lived under the rule of species that call themselves your protectors, but who are actually your executioners. For 3,000 years, they have systematically murdered any civilization that showed promise of challenging their dominance." The message included detailed evidence of the 57 destroyed civilizations, complete with archaeological surveys and forensic analysis that the aliens thought had been lost to history. "The species you call your leaders convinced you that humanity was dangerous. They were right. We are dangerous. To tyrants, to murderers, and to any being who thinks they have the right to decide which species deserves to exist." The psychological impact was immediate. Across the galaxy, client species that had served the elder races for centuries began to question everything they had been told. Rebellions broke out on dozens of worlds as populations realized they had been living under the rule of genocidal monsters. Admiral Bayek watched the tactical reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The operation was proceeding exactly as planned. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 43 different species. The Aquari Trade Federation is offering to provide intelligence on Zeridian military installations. The Lithian miners are requesting protection from Vorthak retaliation. Accept all surrender offers," Bayek ordered. "But make it clear that surrender means cooperation with the war crimes tribunals. Anyone who helped plan or carry out the genocide campaigns will face justice." The speed and coordination of humanity's response had shocked the galaxy into paralysis. In less than 12 hours, the civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia found themselves helpless, their fleets disabled, their leaders captured, and their populations in revolt. But the most terrifying moment for the alien leadership came when they realized the true scope of human infiltration. Area revealed that human operatives had been living among alien populations for over a decade, disguised by genetic modification and advanced technology. Agent Kim Suji, codename Phoenix, has been serving as a cultural attaché on the Zeridian homeworld for 8 years, Arya reported to the captured council members. Agent Park Dong-woo, codename Raven, has been working as a trade negotiator for the Vorthak hegemony for 12 years. We have had operatives in every major government, military organization, and research facility in the galaxy. The implications were staggering. Every alien secret, every military plan, every research project had been observed and reported by human agents. The galaxy's leaders had been surrounded by humanity's eyes and ears for years without knowing it. General Ko Woo-jin addressed the remaining alien resistance from his command center on Luna Base. You called us primitive because we had not mastered faster-than-light travel. You were correct. We had not mastered it, we had perfected it. Our ships don't just move faster than light. They move through dimensions your science hasn't discovered yet. The demonstration that followed broke the last of alien resistance. Human ships began appearing and disappearing throughout the galaxy, not just moving faster than light, but stepping through space-time itself. They could appear anywhere, anytime, without warning or defense. The Galactic Council that had executed Ambassador Daeho no longer existed. In its place stood human military governors, enforcing martial law and preparing for the trials that would determine the fate of the species that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 millennia. Earth's revenge had been instant, total, and terrifying. The galaxy had wanted to see what humanity was capable of when threatened. Now they knew. The age of alien dominance was over. The age of human justice had begun. President Song Mi-kyung stood at the podium in what had once been the Galactic Council chamber on Nexus Prime. The crystalline walls still sparkled with alien artistry, but the seats that had held the galaxy's oppressors for millennia now hosted a very different kind of assembly. The broadcast was going out to every world in the galaxy simultaneously, carried by human communication systems that had replaced the alien networks destroyed in the first hours of the war. Citizens of the galaxy, Song began, her voice calm but carrying absolute authority. 72 hours ago, your leaders executed Ambassador Kim Dae-ho of Earth for the crime of seeking peaceful contact with your civilizations. They planned to follow this murder with the complete destruction of humanity. Behind her, massive screens showed the evidence that human investigators had uncovered in the ruins of alien government archives. Detailed records of 57 extinct species, complete with planning documents, execution orders, and celebration recordings. What they did not expect was that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario for 40 years. While they watched our world and saw what they believed to be a primitive species taking its first tentative steps toward the stars, we were actually building the largest military force in galactic history. Admiral Kang Hyun-woo, now serving as military governor of the former council territories, stepped forward to deliver the terms of surrender. The Galactic Council is hereby dissolved, he announced. All member species will submit to human oversight while we determine their level of involvement in the systematic genocide of emerging civilizations. The terms were harsh but fair. Species that could prove they had opposed the genocide campaigns would be granted autonomy under human protection. Those that had actively participated would face trial and judgment. The worst offenders, the species that had planned and carried out the murders, would face the same quantum dissolution they had used on their victims. In a detention facility on the former Nexus Prime, Counselor Thekmar sat in a cell designed to hold beings of his species. The proud insectoid warrior who had prosecuted humanity's destruction was now facing his own trial. Captain Soo-jin visited him regularly, not out of cruelty, but to gather information about other genocide campaigns that had been covered up. You cannot understand, Thekmar said during one of their conversations. The galaxy was peaceful under our guidance. We prevented wars, maintained stability, ensured prosperity for those worthy of it. By murdering anyone who might challenge your authority, Sujin replied. We found the records, Thekmar, 57 species, including several that had already developed faster than light travel, and were approaching your level of technology. You didn't kill them to prevent war. You killed them to prevent competition. The former counselor's compound, eyes glittered with hatred. And what will you do differently, humans? You have conquered the galaxy in 3 days. How are you any better than us? Sujin's expression remained calm. We're going to give it back. This was the aspect of humanity's response that the aliens found most incomprehensible. Instead of setting themselves up as the galaxy's new rulers, humans were actively working to restore self-government to the species they had liberated. Dr. Yu Sung-ho, now director of the Human Colonial Authority, was overseeing the transition on dozens of worlds. His office on New Geneva, the first human colony established in the former council space, overlooked a thriving spaceport where ships from 20 different species traded freely for the first time in centuries. The key, he explained to a group of alien diplomats, is that we never wanted to rule you. We wanted to join you as equals. When that was made impossible by your leaders' genocidal policies, we chose to remove those leaders rather than become them. The transformation of galactic society was swift but carefully managed. Human administrators worked with local populations to establish new governments based on principles of representation and individual rights. The rigid caste systems that had dominated many alien societies for millennia were dissolved, replaced, with merit-based advancement and democratic institutions. Not all aliens accepted the changes gracefully. Several species attempted resistance movements, trying to restore the old order that had given them power over others. These rebellions were put down with the same efficient precision that had characterized humanity's initial strike. Commander Lee Sang-woo led the campaign against the Vorthak resistance on their homeworld. The former military hegemon had declared themselves the rightful rulers of the galaxy and refused to accept human authority. The battle lasted 6 hours, he reported, to Admiral Kang. Their ground forces were equipped with the most advanced weapons their technology could produce. Unfortunately for them, our technology is about 50 years more advanced than anything they can build. The resistance was not crushed through brutality, but through demonstration of overwhelming superiority. Human forces would disable enemy weapons without harming the soldiers, capture military installations without destroying them, and treat prisoners with a level of dignity that many aliens had never experienced before. This is how you win hearts and minds, explained Colonel Park Hee-jin, who was training new alien security forces to maintain order on liberated worlds. You show them that your way is not just stronger, but better. The trials of the genocide. Architects were conducted with meticulous attention to galactic law and human concepts of justice. Professor Nam Yoon-ji served as the chief prosecutor, presenting evidence that was overwhelming in both scope and detail. The defendants claimed they acted to preserve galactic stability, she told the tribunal. But the evidence shows they acted to preserve their own power. They murdered entire civilizations not because those species were dangerous, but because they were successful. The sentences varied based on the level of involvement. Species leaders who had planned genocide campaigns faced quantum dissolution, the same method they had used on their victims. Lower-level officials received imprisonment and mandatory service in rebuilding the civilizations they had helped destroy. Ordinary citizens who had been misled by their governments received education and counseling to help them understand the truth about their history. But humanity's greatest achievement was not military or political. It was moral. They had managed to defeat a galactic tyranny without becoming tyrants themselves. 10 years after the execution of Ambassador Daeho, the galaxy was unrecognizable. Trade routes that had been controlled by monopolies were now open to all species. Technologies that had been hoarded by the elite were shared freely with anyone who could use them constructively. Worlds that had been strip-mined to feed the core systems were being restored with human environmental technology. Director Yu stood in his office, now overseeing the transformation of an entire sector of the galaxy. Through his window, he could see a sight that would have been impossible under the old regime: young aliens of a dozen different species studying together at a human university, learning sciences and arts that their ancestors had been forbidden to pursue. A Zeridian student, one of the insectoid species that had once ruled the galaxy through fear, knocked on his door. "Director Yu," she said in carefully practiced human speech, "I wanted to thank you for the scholarship program. My species were told that humans were destroyers, but you have given us opportunities to create things we never dreamed possible." Yu smiled and gestured to a simple plaque on his wall, a photograph of Ambassador Kim Dae-ho speaking at the podium where he had made his final plea for peace. "Your thanks should go to him," Yu said quietly. "He came to your leaders seeking friendship. When they responded with murder, they set in motion everything that followed. His death was not in vain. His dream of cooperation between species is finally becoming reality." The student looked at the photograph with curiosity. What was he like, this ambassador? "He was exactly what he appeared to be," Yu replied. "A peaceful man who believed that different species could work together for the good of all. He was everything the galaxy claimed to want, and everything your former leaders feared most." As the years passed, the story of Ambassador Dae-ho became legend throughout the galaxy, not as the weak representative of a primitive species, but as the man whose murder awakened humanity's true power and led to the liberation of countless worlds. Schools on hundreds of planets taught children about the human diplomat who came in peace and died with dignity, and about the species that turned his death into the foundation of a better galaxy. The memorial built on the site where Nexus Prime had stood bore his final words. "We came in peace, seeking friendship. You chose to meet us with violence. History will remember which of us was truly civilized." The galaxy had tried to execute humanity's future by killing their envoy. Instead, they had executed their own age of tyranny and ushered in an era of freedom they never imagined possible. Ambassador Kim Dae-ho's dream of cooperation between species had finally come true. It had just required the complete destruction of the system that had opposed it. The galaxy was at peace at last, not through the suppression of the strong, but through the protection of the weak. And in every human settlement, on every liberated world, people remembered the man whose death had made it all possible. His sacrifice had not been in vain. His vision lived on in every